He mocked her in a language he thought she didn't understand. But the moment she answered, everything changed. In a small Chicago diner under warm yellow lights, a quiet black waitress stepped in to help a struggling customer no one else cared about. He couldn't order. He couldn't explain. And to everyone else, he was just another confused foreign man slowing things down. But Jasmine Carter saw something different and chose kindness anyway. What she didn't know was that the man she helped was a billionaire CEO who had already judged her the second he walked in. And what he didn't know was that she understood every word he said about her. That night, a simple act of kindness turned into a moment that would change both of their lives forever. The diner sat on the corner of West Lake Street, glowing under soft yellow lights that spilled onto the sidewalk like warmth on a cold Chicago evening. Inside, the air carried the scent of butter, grilled meat, and coffee that had been poured too many times to count. Plates clinked, silverware scraped. Conversations hummed low and constant, like a city that never truly rested. Jasmine Carter moved through it all with quiet precision. Her white shirt was neatly pressed, sleeves rolled just enough to show the strength in her arms. A black apron hugged her waist, holding order pads and pens that had seen more chaos than most people realized. She carried 2 plates in one hand, a glass of iced tea in the other, weaving between tables with a grace that came from doing this for years. "Hey, table 6 needs a refill," someone called from behind the counter. "I got it," Jasmine replied without turning. She didn't rush. She never rushed. Rushing meant mistakes, and mistakes meant trouble. Tips lost, shifts cut, rent delayed. At table 3, a man snapped his fingers. "Miss, hey, you. I've been waiting."
Good afternoon.
Jasmine stopped, turned, and smiled. Not the forced kind. Not the one that cracked under pressure. A steady one. Practiced. Real enough to pass. "I'll be right with you, sir. You said that 10 minutes ago. I understand. I'll take care of you next." He rolled his eyes, muttering something under his breath. Jasmine didn't ask him to repeat it. She didn't need to. She had learned early in life which words were meant to be heard and which were meant to be endured. The bell above the door chimed. Most people didn't notice. It was just another customer walking in from the cold. But Jasmine did. She always noticed. A man stepped inside, pausing just long enough for the door to close behind him. He wasn't loud. He didn't draw attention with big gestures or raised voices. But something about him shifted the room anyway, like the air had adjusted without asking permission. He wore a dark overcoat, tailored in a way that didn't try to impress but ended up doing it anyway. His hair was neatly combed, touched with gray at the temples. His posture was straight, composed, controlled. He looked around once, not searching, assessing. Most of the staff didn't move. A couple of them glanced his way, then back to their sections. It wasn't unusual for someone to walk in alone. It wasn't unusual for someone to look out of place. But something about him made them hesitate. So they did what people often do when they don't know how to place someone. They ignored him. The man stepped forward slowly, menu stand just inside the entrance catching his attention. He picked one up, flipping it open. His eyes moved across the words, scanning. Then he stopped. His brow tightened just slightly. He turned a page, then another. His fingers hovered over a line, then moved away. A small pause. He exhaled. From across the room, Jasmine watched, not openly, not in a way anyone else would notice, but she saw the way his shoulders held tension, the way his eyes lingered too long on certain words, the subtle shift in weight from one foot to the other. Confusion. Not dramatic, not obvious, but real. And nobody was helping him. "Jasmine!" She turned. Table 3 again. "I'm ready now," the man said, tapping the menu impatiently. "I'll be right there," she replied. But her eyes flicked back to the man by the door, still standing there, still trying to make sense of something that should have been simple. Jasmine hesitated for half a second. Then she made a choice. She set the glass of iced tea down at the service station, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked toward the entrance. "Good evening," she said gently as she approached. The man looked up. For a brief moment, their eyes met. His gaze was sharp, not rude, not dismissive, but searching, measuring, as if he were trying to place her somewhere in a system only he understood. "Good evening," she continued, her voice calm, steady. "Would you like a table?" There was a slight pause before he answered. "Yes," he said, his accent light but present. "Thank you." She picked up a menu and gestured toward a small table near the window. "Right this way." He followed. Jasmine pulled out the chair for him. He sat, placing the menu flat on the table with deliberate care. She handed him another one, already open to the first page. "I'll give you a moment," she said. He nodded. But as she turned to leave, he spoke again. "Excuse me." She turned back. "Yes, sir?" He hesitated, then pointed at a line on the menu. "This," he said slowly. "What is this?" Jasmine stepped closer, glancing down. "Grilled sirloin," she said. "It's a steak, served with mashed potatoes and seasonal vegetables." He listened carefully, then nodded, though something in his expression suggested he wasn't fully confident. "And this one?" he asked, pointing again. "Chicken fried chicken," she replied. "It's crispy, served with gravy." He frowned slightly. "Chicken. Fried chicken." Jasmine smiled softly. "Yeah, it sounds funny, but it's good." For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close. He nodded again, slower this time. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome." She waited a second, just enough to see if he had another question. He didn't, so she turned and walked back toward the floor. Finally, the man at table 3 snapped as she approached. "You ready to do your job now?" Jasmine met his gaze, her smile returning like it had never left. "Yes, sir. What can I get for you?" Behind her, near the window, the man she had just helped sat quietly, watching. Not the room, not the menu, her. There was something in his eyes now, not confusion, not quite appreciation, something more complicated, as if he were trying to understand why she had stepped forward when no one else had, as if he were asking himself a question he hadn't expected to ask. And for just a moment, Jasmine felt it. That look, not the kind that dismissed her, not the kind that ignored her, but the kind that weighed her, measured her, like she was something he hadn't figured out yet. She turned away before it could linger, but the feeling stayed. And somewhere deep beneath the quiet rhythm of the diner, something had already begun to shift, something neither of them could name yet, and neither of them could stop. Because this was only the beginning, and the question had already been asked, just not out loud. Why did he look at her like she wasn't just a waitress, but something else entirely? The question lingered in the back of Jasmine's mind long after she finished her shift. By the time she stepped out of the diner, the night air simply had turned sharp, the kind of Chicago cold that slipped through your jacket and settled deep in your bones. The neon sign behind her flickered once, then steadied, casting a faint red glow across the sidewalk. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking. The streets were quieter now. A few cars passed. Somewhere in the distance, a bus groaned to a stop, its doors hissing open before closing again. The city never slept, but it slowed just enough for people like Jasmine to breathe between one day and the next. Her phone buzzed. She didn't need to look to know who it was. "Hello?" she answered, already quickening her pace. "Miss Carter?" a woman's voice said on the other end, calm but clinical. "This is Mercy General. We've been trying to reach you." Jasmine's grip tightened around the phone. "I've been at work," she said. "Is everything okay? Is Noah okay?" There was a pause. "He's stable," the woman replied. "But we need to discuss his latest test results. There have been some changes." Jasmine stopped walking. Right there, under a flickering streetlight, with the cold pressing in around her, she stopped. "What kind of changes?" she asked quietly. Another pause, longer this time. "The condition is progressing faster than we expected," the voice said. "We recommend starting a more aggressive treatment plan as soon as possible." Jasmine closed her eyes. "How much?" she asked. The answer came, steady and practiced. "Your insurance will cover part of it, but the remaining cost—" "I didn't ask about insurance," Jasmine cut in gently. "How much?" The number that followed didn't feel real. It felt like something said in a different language, something too large to belong in her world. Jasmine let out a slow breath. "Okay," she said. "Okay. I'll figure it out." "We'll need a decision soon, Miss Carter." "You'll have one," she said. She ended the call and stood there for a moment, the city moving around her like she wasn't part of it. Then she started walking again. Her apartment building sat 3 blocks off a main road, tucked between a laundromat and a corner store with bars on the windows. The hallway smelled faintly of cleaning supplies and something fried from earlier in the evening. She climbed the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. When she reached the 3rd floor, she paused outside her door, listening. Soft breathing, a faint rustle of blankets. She unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom, 1 couch that had seen better days, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people at once. But it was clean, organized, cared for. And on the couch, curled up under a thin blanket, was Noah. His small chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. 1 arm was draped over a worn, stuffed bear, the kind that had been stitched back together more than once. Jasmine set her bag down and moved closer, her steps soft against the floor. She knelt beside him, brushing a hand gently over his hair. He stirred slightly. "Mom?" he murmured, not fully awake. "I'm here," she whispered. "You're late." "I know, I'm sorry." He shifted, his eyes barely opening. "Did you eat?" Jasmine smiled, though her chest tightened. "I did," she said. "Did you?" He nodded faintly. "Mrs. Alvarez brought soup." "That was nice of her." Noah's eyes closed again, his grip tightening slightly on the stuffed bear. "You smell like fries," he mumbled. Jasmine let out a soft laugh. "Occupational hazard." He didn't respond. He was already asleep again. Jasmine sat there for a long moment, watching him, memorizing the way his face looked when he was at peace, because she knew deep down that peace didn't come easy anymore. She stood slowly and moved into the kitchen. A stack of unopened bills sat on the counter. She didn't touch them right away. Instead, she filled a glass with water and leaned against the sink, staring out the small window above it. The city lights blinked in the distance, indifferent to everything happening inside this apartment. After a minute, she reached for the bills. Electric, rent, hospital. She flipped through them one by one, her fingers steady even as her mind raced. Numbers, deadlines, consequences. It all added up to something she couldn't outrun. She set them back down carefully. Then she pulled out her phone, scrolled, stopped. A job listing she had saved weeks ago, customer service coordinator, a corporate office downtown. Required experience she technically had, but not on paper. Not in a way that people like them recognized. She stared at it, then locked her phone. Not tonight. Tonight, she had something else to hold on to. A memory. A moment. A man sitting at a table, struggling with a menu, looking at her like she was something. Not invisible. Not small. Something else. Jasmine shook her head slightly, pushing the thought away. People like him didn't change lives. People like him passed through them. She turned off the kitchen light and walked back to the couch. Gently, she adjusted Noah's blanket, making sure his shoulders were covered. Then she sat beside him, her back against the worn fabric, her eyes fixed on nothing in particular. The silence wrapped around her, heavy, familiar, but beneath it, something new had taken root. A question. Not about money, not about survival, but about that look, that moment, that feeling that, for just a second, someone had seen her differently, and the quiet, dangerous thought that followed it. What if that wasn't an accident? What if it meant something? Jasmine exhaled slowly, shaking her head again. Hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not with bills on the counter. Not with hospital calls in the middle of the night. Not with a child who needed more than she could give. She leaned her head back and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would come fast. Another shift, another set of tables, another day of being called the wrong name, the wrong thing, or nothing at all. And somewhere out there, a man who had looked at her like she mattered. But men like that didn't come back. They never did. Right? Morning came too fast. The light that slipped through the thin curtains wasn't gentle. It was sharp, pale, and cold, the kind that didn't warm a room so much as expose it. Jasmine blinked against it, her body still heavy from a night that never really turned into sleep. Noah was already awake. He sat cross-legged on the couch, wrapped in the same blanket, his small fingers tracing patterns along the seams of his stuffed bear. The TV played low in the background, cartoons she couldn't afford to pay attention to. "You're up early?" Jasmine said, pushing herself upright. He looked over, a small smile forming. "You were talking in your sleep." Jasmine paused. "What was I saying?" He shrugged. "Something about menus." She let out a soft breath, almost a laugh. "Guess work follows me home now." Noah tilted his head. "Are you gonna be late again?" Jasmine shook her head, already moving toward the kitchen. "No, not today." She poured cereal into a bowl, added milk, and slid it across the counter to him. Then she grabbed her phone, checking the time, the missed notifications, the reality waiting for her outside. Nothing had changed. The bills were still there. The hospital call still hung over everything. And yet, that look from last night still lingered. She pushed it away. "Eat up," she said gently. "Mrs. Alvarez will check on you later, okay?" He nodded, already focused on his spoon. Jasmine grabbed her coat, her bag, and paused at the door just long enough to look back. "Love you." "Love you more," he said without looking up. She smiled, then stepped out into the cold. By the time she reached the diner, the city had already found its rhythm again. Cars lined the street. Steam rose from grates in the sidewalk. People moved fast, eyes forward, chasing something just ahead of them. Inside, the diner buzzed louder than usual. Breakfast rush. Danny was already behind the counter, flipping pancakes with one hand while juggling a conversation with two different tables. "You're late," he called out, though she wasn't. "Clock says I'm early," Jasmine replied, tying her apron. "Clock's a liar." She smiled faintly, grabbing her order pad. The door chimed again. Jasmine didn't look up right away. She was pouring coffee, refilling a glass, sliding a plate across a table. But something shifted. That same quiet shift from the night before. Subtle, unmistakable. She turned, and there he was. Kenji Sato. No overcoat this time. Just a dark suit, clean lines, nothing out of place. Behind him stood a woman in her late 20s, sharp, composed, holding a tablet like it was part of her hand. Two men followed, both dressed the same way, both carrying that quiet weight of people who made decisions for a living. They didn't belong in this place, and they knew it. Danny leaned closer to Jasmine. "You know them?" he whispered. Jasmine shook her head slightly. "No." But her eyes didn't leave the man at the door. Kenji's gaze moved across the room once, just like before. Then it landed on her. This time it didn't pass. It stayed, only for a second, but long enough to be intentional. Then he looked away. "Table for 4, the woman beside him said, her voice smooth, practiced. "Right this way." Danny jumped in quickly, already grabbing menus. Jasmine watched as they were seated near the back. The same table. The one by the window. Her table. Danny turned back, eyes wide. "Those people look like they tip in percentages I don't understand," he muttered. "You want that table?" Jasmine didn't answer right away. She looked at Kenji again. He was already seated, flipping through the menu. But this time, there was no hesitation, no confusion, no pause. Just focus, like he had come prepared. "I'll take it," she said quietly. Danny raised an eyebrow. "You sure? They look like the kind who send food back for sport." "I'll take it," she repeated. He shrugged. "Your funeral." Jasmine picked up 4 menus, smoothed her apron, and walked toward the table. Each step steady, measured, controlled. "Good morning," she said, her voice warm but even. "Welcome back." The woman looked up first, offering a polite, professional smile. "Good morning." One of the men barely glanced up. The other nodded once. Kenji didn't respond immediately. He kept his eyes on the menu. Then, slowly, he looked up. Right at Jasmine. Not past her. Not through her. At her. There was something different in his expression now. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Something tighter. More guarded. "Good morning," he said finally. His English was clearer this time. Sharper. Like he had practiced. "Can I start you with something to drink?" Jasmine asked. "Coffee," one of the men said immediately. "Same," the other added. The woman hesitated, then, "Green tea, if you have it." Jasmine nodded, jotting it down. "And for you, sir?" she asked, turning to Kenji. There was a brief pause. Then he spoke. "Water," he said. No hesitation, no struggle. Just one word. Clean, controlled. Jasmine wrote it down. "I'll be right back." She turned, heading toward the counter. Behind her, voices rose. Low, measured, Japanese. She didn't need to turn to know. Kenji was speaking, fluently, easily. The language flowed in a way it hadn't the night before. And even without looking, Jasmine knew. He wasn't struggling anymore. At the counter, Danny leaned in again. "What are they saying?" he whispered. Jasmine didn't answer. She poured coffee, set cups on a tray, moved like she always did. But inside, something shifted. She carried the drinks back to the table, set each one down carefully. Precise. Unhurried. As if nothing had changed. As if she hadn't heard anything at all. Kenji didn't look at her as she placed the water in front of him. But as she straightened, he spoke. Not in English. In Japanese. The words came quick, smooth, deliberate. Directed not at her, but about her. One of the men at the table let out a small laugh. The woman's smile tightened slightly, her eyes flicking toward Jasmine for just a second before returning to her tablet. Jasmine stood there, still, quiet. The room around them kept moving. Plates clattered, orders were called, coffee poured. But at that table, something else had begun. Kenji said another sentence, longer this time, the tone different, sharper, testing. Jasmine didn't move, didn't react, didn't even blink. Then, slowly, she stepped back. "Are you ready to order?" she asked in English, her voice calm, unchanged. "Or would you like a few more minutes?" Kenji looked up, really looked this time. His eyes searched her face, waiting, watching, for something, anything. A flicker, a reaction, proof. But there was nothing, just the same steady expression, the same quiet composure. He held her gaze for a moment longer, then leaned back in his chair. "We need a moment," he said in English. Jasmine nodded. "Of course." She turned and walked away. Behind her, the voices resumed. Japanese again. Faster, more deliberate. And this time, there was no mistaking it. He was testing her. Not the menu, not the service. Her. Jasmine reached the service station and set the tray down carefully. Danny leaned in, eyes wide. "Okay, now I definitely want to know what's going on." Jasmine didn't look at him. She just picked up her order pad again. "They're deciding what to eat," she said quietly. Danny frowned. "That's not what it sounded like." Jasmine didn't respond. Because he was right. It wasn't. And deep down, she knew exactly what it was. A test. A quiet, careful, deliberate test. And the real question wasn't whether she would pass. It was whether she would answer. Or stay silent. The diner kept moving. Orders came in, plates went out, coffee poured in a steady rhythm that didn't stop for anyone's pride or pain. Jasmine moved through it like she always did. Smooth, quiet, efficient. But something inside her had sharpened. At table 7, Kenji Sato and his group had settled into their seats like they owned the space around them. And maybe, in a way, they did. Power didn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it sat back in a chair, spoke another language, and waited to see who understood. Jasmine returned to their table, order pad ready. "Are you ready to order?" she asked. The woman, Claire, if the name on her tablet meant anything, looked up first. "Yes," she said. "We are." One of the men ordered quickly. Eggs, toast, coffee, simple. The other followed, barely looking up. Claire spoke next, choosing carefully, her voice measured. "I'll have the salmon salad. Dressing on the side." Jasmine wrote each one down, her pen steady. Then she looked at Kenji. "And for you, sir?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he said something in Japanese. The words flowed easily, too easily. The man beside him chuckled under his breath. Claire didn't laugh, but she didn't interrupt either. Jasmine stood there, still, listening. Kenji spoke again, this time slower, as if explaining something. Another sentence followed. Longer, sharper. Then he finally looked up. "I will have," he began in English, pausing as if searching for the words. "The steak." Jasmine nodded. "How would you like it cooked?" He held her gaze. Then, deliberately, he said in Japanese, "Medium rare, but let's see if she understands anything at all." The other man smiled into his coffee. Jasmine didn't blink. She wrote it down. "Medium rare," she repeated in English. Kenji's eyes narrowed just slightly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But Jasmine saw it. She finished taking the order. "I'll have that out for you shortly." As she turned, Kenji spoke again. Japanese. Faster now. Not even pretending to include her. The tone had changed. Less curious. More certain. The kind of tone people used when they believed they had already figured you out. Jasmine walked away. Each step controlled. Each breath measured. Behind her, the words continued. She didn't need to turn around. She knew exactly what they sounded like. What they meant. At the service station, Danny was watching her. "Okay, now I know something's off," he said quietly. "They're talking about you, aren't they?" Jasmine didn't answer right away. She set the order ticket down in the kitchen window. Marco glanced at it, nodded once, and got to work. "They're just talking," she said finally. Danny leaned in closer. "Yeah, well, it doesn't sound friendly." Jasmine picked up a tray. "It doesn't have to be." He frowned. "You gonna let that slide?" She met his eyes for just a second. "I'm going to do my job." Danny opened his mouth like he wanted to say more, then closed it. Because there was something in her voice. Not weakness, not fear. Something steadier than both. The food came out perfect. It always did when Jasmine was watching. The steak sat exactly right on the plate. Juices sealed, edges crisp. The salmon was plated clean, the dressing set aside just like Claire had asked. Every detail aligned. Jasmine carried the tray back to the table, set each plate down with quiet precision. "Steak, medium rare," she said, placing Kenji's dish in front of him. He looked at it, then at her, just for a second. Then he picked up his knife and cut into it. The center was exactly right. He paused. Not long, but long enough. Then he took a bite, chewed, swallowed, said nothing. But the silence said enough. Jasmine moved to refill water glasses. Kenji spoke again. Japanese. Low. Measured. The man beside him responded this time. A short sentence. A laugh. Claire shifted slightly in her seat. Not uncomfortable, but aware. Jasmine reached for Kenji's glass. As she poured, he spoke again. Clear enough this time that even without the language, the tone carried. Dismissive, controlled, certain. Claire's eyes flicked toward Jasmine, then away. Jasmine set the pitcher down, and for the first time, she felt it. Not just the words, but the weight behind them, the assumption, the quiet belief that she didn't belong, that she couldn't understand, that she wasn't meant to. Her hand tightened slightly around the edge of the table, then released. She stepped back. "Is everything to your liking?" she asked. Kenji looked up. There it was again. That look, not confusion, not curiosity, judgment, the kind that didn't need to be spoken out loud. "Yes," he said. "It is acceptable." Jasmine nodded. "I'm glad to hear that." She turned to leave. "Wait." She stopped, turned back. "Yes, sir?" Kenji leaned back in his chair. His eyes didn't leave hers. Then, slowly, deliberately, he said something in Japanese. Longer this time. Clearer. The kind of sentence meant to be heard by someone who couldn't respond. The other man smiled. Claire looked down at her plate. Jasmine stood there, still, listening, every word landing exactly where it was meant to. And for a moment, the room around her faded. The clatter, the voices, the hum of the diner. All of it blurred into the background. Because in that moment, it wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't just about a customer. It was about something deeper, something older. The kind of thing she had felt her whole life. being spoken over, looked through, measured before she ever opened her mouth. Her chest rose slowly, then fell, and when she spoke, her voice was exactly the same as it had been all morning. Calm, steady, unshaken. "I'll give you a few minutes to finish," she said. Then she turned and walked away. Behind her, the table went quiet. Not for long. Just long enough. Because something had shifted. Not in the room, not yet, but in the space between them. Kenji watched her as she moved across the diner, his expression unreadable, but his eyes lingered, because for the first time, he wasn't sure. Not about the food, not about the service, but about her. And somewhere beneath that uncertainty, a new question formed, one he hadn't expected to ask. Had she understood? Or had he just imagined it? Kenji didn't ask. He didn't need to. Men like him didn't ask questions out loud when they could test the answers instead. At table 7, the air had changed. Not visibly. Not in a way anyone else could name. But it had tightened, like a string pulled just a little too far. Jasmine moved through the diner as if nothing had happened. She cleared plates at table 4, refilled coffee at table 2, smiled when she needed to, listened when she had to. Her steps were steady, her voice even. But inside, every word from that table still echoed. Not because they were new, because they weren't. She had heard versions of them her whole life. Different voices, different rooms. Same message. You don't belong here. You're pretending. You're temporary. Jasmine reached for a stack of clean glasses when her phone buzzed again in her apron pocket. She froze for half a second, then stepped into the narrow hallway by the kitchen and answered. "Hello? Miss Carter, this is Mercy General again." Her breath caught. "Yes." "We need you to come in this afternoon," the voice said. "Your son had another episode this morning. He's stable, but the doctor would like to speak with you in person." Jasmine leaned her shoulder against the wall. "When?" she asked. "As soon as possible." Her eyes closed. "I'm working." There was a pause on the line. "We understand, but this is important." Jasmine swallowed. "I'll be there after my shift." "Miss Carter, I'll be there," she repeated. She ended the call. For a moment she didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, the sound of the kitchen bleeding through the door behind her, the weight of everything pressing in at once. Then, "Jasmine!" She straightened, stepped back into the light. "I'm coming," she called, because she always came, no matter what was happening inside her. At table 7, the plates had been mostly cleared. Kenji sat back, one hand resting lightly against the table, his gaze drifting toward the window. The others were mid-conversation, voices low, controlled. But his attention, it kept slipping. Back to her. Jasmine approached with a tray, her expression calm, composed, unreadable. "Can I get anyone anything else?" she asked. Claire looked up. "Another tea, please." "Of course." One of the men gestured toward his empty cup. "Coffee." Jasmine nodded, writing it down. Then she looked at Kenji. "And for you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he spoke in Japanese. Another sentence, short, measured. The man beside him smiled again. Jasmine stood there, listening. Every word clear, every tone intentional. She wrote something down anyway, then looked up. "Water," she said simply, placing her pen back into her apron. Kenji's eyes lifted, locked onto hers. A flicker. There. Gone. I didn't say that in English, he replied. Jasmine tilted her head just slightly. You didn't have to, she said. A beat. Claire looked between them. The other men went quiet. Kenji leaned back slowly, studying her now, not dismissing, not ignoring. Studying. Jasmine didn't wait for a response. I'll be right back with your drinks. She turned and walked away. Behind her, the silence lingered longer this time. Not confusion. Not quite. Something closer to realization. At the counter, Danny was already watching. Okay, he whispered. Now I know you heard that. Jasmine picked up a coffee pot. I hear a lot of things, she said. Danny leaned closer. So what are you going to do about it? She poured coffee into a cup. Steady hand, no spill. Nothing. He blinked. Nothing? She set the pot down. I'm going to finish my shift. Danny shook his head. You're better than that, you know. Jasmine looked at him. Not defensive, not angry, just tired. I don't need to prove that to them, she said quietly. Then she picked up the tray and walked back. The drinks were served. The table settled again. But the rhythm had changed. Kenji didn't speak as much now. When he did, it was shorter, more deliberate, less certain. Jasmine moved through her tasks with the same quiet precision. But something else had shifted too. Not in the room, in him. He watched her differently now. Not as background, not as noise, but as something unresolved. Near the end of the meal, as Jasmine cleared the last plate, one of the men reached for his wallet. Claire glanced at Kenji. He gave a small nod. The check was placed, handled, finished, simple. But nothing about this table had been simple. As Jasmine turned to leave, Kenji spoke again, in English this time. Wait. She stopped, turned back. Yes, sir? He hesitated. Just for a second. Then, my order earlier, he said. You corrected it. Jasmine met his gaze. I made sure it was right. You understood it, he said. Not a question, a statement. Jasmine held his eyes. Is there anything else you need? She asked. He studied her face and searching for confirmation, for something. But she gave him nothing more. Just calm, just steady, just control. After a moment, he nodded once. No. Jasmine inclined her head slightly. Have a good afternoon. She turned and walked away. And this time, he didn't look away first. The bell above the door chimed as they left. The diner exhaled. The noise returned to normal. Danny leaned against the counter, watching the door close. Well, he muttered. That was something. Jasmine didn't respond. She was already wiping down the table, clearing the space, resetting it for the next customer, like nothing had happened, like it didn't matter. But inside, something had cracked. Not from what he said, from what he didn't. From the way he looked at her now, like he wasn't sure anymore. And that uncertainty, that was new. Her shift ended late, later than she had planned, later than she could afford. By the time she stepped outside, the sky had shifted, gray clouds rolling in, heavy with the promise of rain. She didn't wait, didn't stop, just walked. Fast. The hospital wasn't far, but it felt like miles, because every step carried the same question. How much time? How much cost? How much more could she give before there was nothing left? She pushed through the hospital doors, the sterile air hitting her like a wall. Jasmine Carter? A nurse called. I'm here. Right this way. The hallway stretched long and bright. Too clean, too quiet. She followed, heart pounding, breath tight. When she reached the room, Noah was awake, sitting up, smiling when he saw her. Hey, Mom. Jasmine crossed the room in 2 steps and wrapped him in her arms. I'm here, she whispered. I know. He pulled back slightly. Did you have a good day? Jasmine smiled, because what else could she do? I did, she said. He nodded, satisfied. Like that was enough. Like her being okay made everything else okay too. Jasmine sat beside him, holding his hand. The machines beeped softly in the background. Steady, predictable, unlike everything else. The doctor stepped in a moment later, clipboard in hand, expression careful. We need to talk, he said. Jasmine didn't let go of Noah's hand. I'm listening. And as he spoke, about treatment, about cost, about time, Jasmine felt the weight of it settle. Heavy, unavoidable, real. But even then, even there, her mind drifted, back to the diner, back to the man who had tested her, dismissed her, watched her, and for a moment, seen her. She didn't need his money. She didn't need his approval. But something about that moment, that shift, it stayed. Because for the first time in a long time, someone who had everything had looked at her like she might be more. And Jasmine didn't know what that meant yet. But she knew one thing. Whatever came next, she would still choose kindness. Not because they deserved it, but because she did. The next morning came with rain. Not the kind that poured hard and cleared fast. This was the slow kind, steady, gray. The kind that blurred the edges of the city and made everything feel a little heavier than it was. Jasmine stood at the bus stop, her coat pulled tight, one hand gripping the strap of her bag. The streetlights reflected in the wet pavement, stretching into long golden lines that broke every time a car passed. Her phone sat silent in her pocket. The doctor's words from the night before hadn't. Aggressive treatment. Limited time. We need a decision. She closed her eyes for a second, letting the rain tap against her hood. Then the bus arrived, doors opening with a tired sigh. She stepped on. The diner smelled the same. Coffee, butter, something frying just a little too long. Familiar. Safe. Danny was already there, wiping down the counter with a rag that had seen better days. You look like you didn't sleep, he said without looking up. Jasmine hung her coat. I didn't. He glanced at her then, really looked. Everything okay? She tied her apron. It will be. Danny held her gaze for a moment, then nodded, because sometimes that was all you could do. The bell above the door chimed. Jasmine didn't turn right away. She didn't need to. She felt it. That same shift, quieter this time, but sharper. When she did look, Kenji Sato was standing at the door again, alone. No assistant, no executives, just him. Rain dotted the shoulders of his coat, but he didn't brush it off. He stood there for a moment, scanning the room, then stepped inside like he had already decided something. Danny leaned in. You got a regular now? He whispered. Jasmine didn't answer. She picked up a menu and walked toward him. Good morning, she said. Kenji looked at her. Not quickly, not casually, directly. Good morning, he replied. She gestured toward the same table by the window. This way. He followed. The rain tapped softly against the glass as he sat down, The world outside blurred into streaks of gray and gold. Jasmine handed him the menu. "I'll give you a moment." But before she could turn, he spoke. In Japanese. Clear. Deliberate. "I wonder how long she'll pretend not to understand." Jasmine didn't move, didn't react, didn't even pause. "I'll be right back," she said in English. Then she walked away. At the counter, she didn't pick up the coffee pot right away. She stood still, just for a second. Because this was different now. Yesterday had been curiosity. Today was intention. He wasn't guessing anymore. He was testing. Danny nudged her lightly. "You good?" Jasmine picked up the pot. "I'm fine." But her mind was already moving, calculating. Not how to respond, but when. She returned with coffee, set it down in front of him. "Black," she said. He hadn't asked, but she remembered. Kenji looked at the cup, then at her. Another flicker, then gone. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome." She stepped back, waiting. Present. Not hovering. Exactly the distance he had criticized without knowing she heard it. He picked up the menu, flipped a page. Then he began, Japanese again, faster this time, layered, complicated. "I'll have the steak," he said in English between sentences, then continued in Japanese. "Medium rare but closer to rare, no seasoning on one side, and bring the sauce separately, not on the plate." He didn't look up, didn't slow down, just kept speaking, as if the language itself was the barrier, as if it guaranteed control. Jasmine wrote everything down, every detail, every change. Then she looked up. "Would you like anything else?" she asked. Kenji paused, then added in Japanese again. "Water, room temperature, not cold, and bring bread, but no butter." Jasmine nodded once. "I'll have that right out." She turned, walked to the kitchen. Marco glanced at the ticket. His brow furrowed. "This is specific." Jasmine met his eyes. "Can you do it?" He shrugged. "I can do anything. Question is, should I?" Jasmine gave him a small nod. "Do it." He studied her for a second longer, then turned back to the grill. Back at the table, Kenji sat still, hands folded, eyes on the window, but his attention wasn't outside. It was behind him, waiting, listening, measuring. The diner moved around him, unaware, or pretending to be, because something about this moment, it carried weight, the kind that made people quieter without knowing why. Jasmine returned with water, set it down, room temperature, no ice, then bread, no butter. Kenji watched every movement, every placement, every detail. Still, he said nothing. The food came out 10 minutes later. Perfect. Exactly as ordered. Jasmine carried the plate over, set it down in front of him. "Steak," she said. "Prepared as requested." Kenji looked at it. Didn't touch it right away. Just looked. Then, slowly, he cut into it. The center was right. Not medium rare. Closer to rare. Just like he had said, in Japanese. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed, then placed the fork down. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deliberately. He looked up at her, really looked this time. "How did you know?" he asked. Jasmine tilted her head slightly. "I wrote it down." His eyes narrowed. "That's not what I asked." The rain outside grew heavier, tapping harder against the glass. Jasmine held his gaze. Steady, calm, unshaken. "You told me what you wanted," she said. "In English?" A beat. Jasmine didn't answer, didn't explain, didn't fill the space. She just stood there, present. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but full. Kenji leaned back slowly. Something in his expression shifted. Not frustration, not anger. Something closer to uncertainty. For the first time since he had walked into that diner, he didn't have control of the moment, and he knew it. Jasmine picked up the water pitcher. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" Kenji watched her. Longer this time, as if trying to solve something, as if trying to decide whether to push further or step back. Finally, "No," he said. Jasmine nodded. "Enjoy your meal." She turned, walked away. At the counter, Danny was practically vibrating. "Okay, I don't know what's going on," he whispered, "but I'm invested now." Jasmine allowed herself the smallest smile. "Just another table," she said. Danny shook his head. "No, that's not just a table." Jasmine didn't argue, because he was right. Behind her, at the window, Kenji Sato picked up his fork again. But this time, he wasn't just eating, he was thinking. And for the first time, he wasn't sure what game he was playing anymore. The diner didn't notice it right away. To everyone else, it was just another late morning. Plates coming and going, chairs scraping softly against the floor, the steady rhythm of a place that had learned how to carry 100 small lives at once. But at table 7, something had shifted. Kenji Sato sat with his hands resting lightly beside his plate, the untouched half of his meal cooling in front of him. The rain outside had softened, now tracing thin lines down the glass, blurring the city into something distant and quiet. He wasn't eating, he was watching. Across the room, Jasmine moved between tables with the same calm precision she always carried. Refill, clear, smile, turn, step, repeat. Every motion clean, deliberate, practiced over years of being seen without being noticed. But now, he noticed everything. The way she adjusted a glass before a customer asked. The way she shifted her path half a step to avoid a collision before it happened. The way her attention moved, not randomly, but with purpose, not guessing, knowing. Kenji leaned back slightly. There was a structure to it, a pattern, and patterns could be read. He reached for his glass, then stopped, set it back down, and spoke. In Japanese. Not quietly this time, not hidden behind the rhythm of conversation. Clear, measured, intentional. "She's careful," he said, his voice smooth, controlled. "But it's learned behavior. You can always tell the difference." The man at the next table glanced over briefly, not because he understood the words, but because he understood tone. Jasmine was at the counter, her back partially turned. Her hands moved over a stack of clean plates. She didn't react. Kenji continued. "People who belong in places like this don't think about every step. They don't calculate every move." A pause. "They don't perform competence." The word hung there. Perform. Across the room, Danny slowed his movements just slightly. He didn't know what was being said, but he felt something. Everyone did. Kenji's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "She's trying," he added, almost thoughtfully. "But trying is not the same as being." The sentence landed, not loud, but sharp, like something placed carefully where it would do the most work. Jasmine set the last plate down. Her hands were still, For 1 second. Then she picked up a tray, turned, and walked back toward the table. Each step steady, measured, unhurried. The closer she got, the quieter the space around them seemed to become. Not because people stopped talking, because something in the air asked them to listen. Kenji saw her approach. He didn't stop speaking. She probably memorized enough to pass, he continued in Japanese. But when something unexpected happens, the cracks show. Jasmine reached the table, set the tray down, picked up his empty glass, refilled it, her movements precise, unshaken. Kenji watched her, closely now, waiting for a flicker, a reaction, a break. But there was nothing. Just the same calm, the same quiet control. Jasmine set the pitcher down, and then she didn't step away, not immediately. She stood there, straight, present, not hovering, not retreating, just there. Kenji's voice slowed, not because he chose to, because something in the moment demanded it. She belongs somewhere smaller, he said, the words softer now, but no less sharp. Somewhere she doesn't have to pretend. The rain outside stopped, just like that, leaving only the faint sound of water dripping from the edge of the roof. Jasmine lifted her eyes and looked at him. Not past him, not around him. At him. For the first time since he had walked into that diner, she met him fully. Kenji held her gaze, waiting, still expecting silence, still expecting control, still expecting the rules to hold. Jasmine inhaled once, slow, measured. And then she spoke, in Japanese. "If you wanted proper service," she said, her voice calm, even unhurried, "you should have ordered correctly the first time." The fork in Kenji's hand stopped. The man beside him froze mid-motion. At the counter, Danny went completely still. The entire room didn't go silent, but it felt like it did. Because something had broken. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Kenji turned his head slightly, not away, not toward anyone else. Just enough to reorient himself, to make sure he had heard correctly. Jasmine continued. Her Japanese was not hesitant, not rehearsed. It moved naturally. Fluid. Exact. "You specified medium rare in English," she said, "but closer to rare in Japanese. You asked for no seasoning on one side. Sauce separate. Water at room temperature. Bread without butter." Each detail placed carefully, one after the other, not to prove a point, but to establish truth. "I followed what you actually asked for," she finished. A pause. Then, "I understood everything you said." The words settled into the space between them, heavy, unavoidable. Kenji didn't move, didn't speak. For the first time, he had no immediate response. Jasmine tilted her head just slightly and added, still in Japanese, "Would you prefer I continue in Kyoto dialect, or should we return to English?" The question was soft, polite, precise, and devastating, because it didn't just reveal that she understood. It revealed how deeply. The man beside Kenji looked down at his plate. Claire, who had just stepped back into the diner, pausing near the entrance, stopped completely. Her eyes fixed on the table, on Jasmine, on the moment unfolding in front of her. Kenji's expression changed, not dramatically, but unmistakably. The controlled surface cracked just enough to show something underneath. Not anger, not embarrassment. Something closer to recognition. Jasmine held his gaze. Not challenging, not accusing, just steady. Then, without waiting for an answer, she switched back to English. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" Her voice was exactly the same as it had been all morning. Calm, professional, unshaken. She turned, picked up her tray, and walked away. The room exhaled slowly. Conversations resumed in pieces. Chairs shifted, plates clinked, but nothing felt the same. At table 7, Kenji Sato sat completely still, his hands resting on the table, his eyes fixed on the space where she had been standing. And for the first time in a very long time, he understood something he hadn't planned to understand. He had been wrong. Not about the food, not about the service, but about her. And that realization, it didn't come with noise, or anger, or defense. It came with silence, the kind that forces you to see clearly, whether you want to or not. The diner didn't return to normal. Not completely. The sounds came back, forks against plates, chairs shifting, coffee being poured, but they felt thinner now, like a layer of noise placed carefully over something deeper that hadn't settled yet. At table 7, no one spoke. Kenji Sato remained seated, his posture unchanged, his expression composed, but it was a different kind of composure now. Not control, not certainty, containment. Across the room, Jasmine moved as if nothing had happened. She cleared a table, stacked dishes, refilled a cup. Her rhythm didn't break, and that, more than anything she had said, unsettled him. Because if it had been anger, he would have understood it. If it had been defiance, he could have answered it. But this quiet continuation, this refusal to make the moment larger than it already was, he had no structure for it. Claire approached the table slowly, her heels soft against the tile floor. She set her tablet down beside Kenji's plate, but she didn't sit. "You didn't tell me she spoke Japanese," she said quietly. Kenji didn't look at her. "I didn't know," he replied. That wasn't entirely true. Something in him had suspected, but suspicion wasn't the same as knowing, and knowing changed things. Claire glanced across the room. Jasmine was at the counter now, speaking softly with Danny, her hands moving as she explained something about an order. There was no tension in her posture, no visible trace of what had just happened. "She didn't raise her voice," Claire said. Kenji's fingers rested lightly against the edge of his glass. "No." "She didn't embarrass you," Claire added. Kenji's jaw shifted slightly. "No." Claire looked back at him. "She didn't need to." Kenji didn't answer, because that was the part he couldn't ignore. A few minutes later, Jasmine returned to the table, not because she had to, because it was time. She placed a small plate in front of Kenji, a slice of pie, warm, steam rising faintly from the edges. "I didn't order this," he said. "You didn't," Jasmine replied. He looked up. "This is on the house," she added. "For what?" Jasmine met his gaze. "For staying." A pause. The words were simple, but they landed heavier than anything else she had said. Kenji studied her face, searching again. For anger, for judgment, for something to match what he was used to. But there was nothing. Just calm. Just clarity. "Why?" he asked. Jasmine didn't answer right away. She glanced briefly toward the window, where the rain had finally stopped, leaving the glass clear, then back at him. Because not everyone who misunderstands something is trying to, she said. The sentence settled. Not defensive, not forgiving, just true. Kenji's hand moved slightly on the table. Yesterday, he said slowly, you helped me. Jasmine nodded. Yes. You didn't know who I was. No. You didn't ask. I didn't need to. Another pause. Kenji looked down at the pie, then back up. And today, he said, after everything I said, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Jasmine understood the question. She had understood it long before he asked it. I'm not here to decide who deserves help, she said quietly. Her voice didn't rise, didn't sharpen. It didn't need to. I'm here to do it. The words didn't challenge him. They didn't accuse him. They didn't ask anything from him. And somehow, that made them harder to sit with. Kenji leaned back slightly. For the first time since he had entered that diner, he didn't feel like he was ahead of the conversation. He felt behind it, trying to catch up. You heard everything, he said. Jasmine didn't look away. Yes. And you said nothing. Yes. Why? The question came out softer than he intended. Jasmine considered it, not because she didn't have an answer, because she did. She just chose how much of it to give. Because not every moment needs to be fought, she said. Another pause. And the ones that do, she added, don't need noise. Kenji absorbed that. Slowly, like something that didn't fit into any of the categories he had built his world around. Claire stepped back slightly, giving them space without making it obvious. The diner moved around them again, but this table, this conversation, still held something separate. Kenji picked up his fork, cut a small piece of the pie, tasted it. It was simple, warm, not refined, not complicated, but it was good. He set the fork down. Where did you learn? He asked. Jasmine's eyes softened just slightly. From someone who respected it, she said. In Japan? She nodded. Yes. Kenji watched her carefully. Was it a school? Jasmine shook her head. No. Another pause, then. A person. The word carried something deeper than explanation. Kenji felt it, didn't fully understand it, but recognized it. Because he had known someone like that once, a long time ago, before everything became numbers and leverage and outcomes, before people became variables. He looked at her again, not as a waitress, not as a moment, as a person. Fully. For the first time. I was wrong, he said. The words came out without hesitation, without calculation, without defense. Jasmine didn't react the way he expected. No satisfaction, no relief, no visible shift, just a small nod. I know, she said. The simplicity of it landed harder than anything else, because it wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about not needing to. Kenji exhaled slowly. Something in his chest loosened. Not fully, but enough. Thank you, he said. Jasmine picked up the empty plate from earlier. You're welcome. She turned to leave, but Kenji spoke again. One more thing. She stopped, turned back. Yes? He hesitated, not because he didn't have words, because he wasn't used to needing them. If I asked you something, he said carefully, Would you answer honestly? Jasmine held his gaze. I usually do. Kenji nodded, then asked, Why didn't you take advantage of it? The question hung between them. Clear, direct. What he meant was obvious. Why didn't you use it? Why didn't you expose me? Why didn't you win? Jasmine didn't look surprised. She had expected it. She just hadn't known if he would be the kind of man to ask it. Now she did. Because that wouldn't have changed anything, she said. Kenji frowned slightly. It would have changed how people saw you. Jasmine smiled faintly. That's not the same thing. A beat. Then, I don't need a moment to prove who I am, she said. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. Real weight. The kind that didn't come from confidence, but from experience. Kenji sat back, silent, because for the first time, he didn't have a counterpoint, didn't have a strategy, didn't have a move. All he had was understanding, and it came slower than he liked, but deeper than he expected. Jasmine gave a small nod. If you don't need anything else, he shook his head. No. She turned, walked away. And this time, he didn't watch her like a problem to solve. He watched her like something he had missed, and was only now beginning to see. The diner slowly returned to its rhythm. Not the same rhythm, but close enough that most people wouldn't notice the difference. Plates moved. Orders came in. The door chimed as customers left and entered again. The world resumed its pace, as it always did, unwilling to hold still for any one moment, no matter how sharp or revealing. But for Kenji Sato, something had shifted. Not outside. Inside. He finished the pie. Not because he was hungry, because it gave him time. Time to sit with something he hadn't planned for. A conversation that didn't follow structure. A person who didn't follow rules he understood. Across the room, Jasmine moved through her shift like she always had. But now, he saw the details. The small things. The things that didn't exist on resumes or titles. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't measure them. He observed them. The difference mattered. He stood when he was ready to leave. Not abruptly. Not with urgency. But with intention. The kind that made people notice even when they didn't mean to. Danny looked up from the counter. Claire straightened slightly near the door. Jasmine was at the service station, stacking clean plates. Kenji walked toward her. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just direct. When he reached her, he stopped. Close enough to speak, not close enough to intrude. Miss Carter, he said. Jasmine turned, her expression the same as always. Calm, attentive. Yes, sir? Kenji held her gaze. There was no room for performance here. Not anymore. I would like to help you, he said. The words came clean, clear, direct. Jasmine didn't react. Not outwardly, but something in her eyes shifted. Barely. What kind of help? She asked. Kenji took a breath, measured, careful. I have resources, he said. Connections. If there is something you need, I can arrange it. The offer wasn't vague. It wasn't empty. It carried weight. Real weight. The kind that could change lives. And he knew it. The kind that usually did. Jasmine looked at him. Not impressed. Not offended. Just present. You don't know what I need, she said. Kenji didn't flinch. Then tell me. A pause. The diner moved around them, unaware. or pretending to be. Jasmine set the last plate down, wiped her hands slowly on her apron, then met his eyes again. "My son is in the hospital," she said. The words came without hesitation, without drama, just truth. Kenji listened, fully. "He needs treatment," she continued. "Expensive treatment." Kenji nodded once. "That can be arranged." There it was, simple, efficient, solved, the way problems were supposed to be solved in his world. Jasmine held his gaze, then shook her head. "No." The word didn't come loud, but it landed hard. Kenji blinked, not in confusion, in recalibration. "I don't understand," he said. "You don't have to," Jasmine replied. Kenji's jaw shifted slightly. "This is not charity," he said. "This is help," she finished for him. He nodded. "Yes." Jasmine's expression softened just slightly, not toward him, toward the idea. "I know what it is," she said. "Then why refuse it?" The question came sharper than he intended. Not frustration, something closer to disbelief. Because in his world, this didn't happen. People didn't say no to solutions. Not when the cost was this high. Not when the stakes were this real. Jasmine didn't answer right away. She let the silence settle. Let the question exist. Then, "I don't need someone to fix my life for me," she said. Kenji held her gaze. "This isn't about fixing," he replied. "It's about opportunity." Jasmine shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "It's about control." The word landed. Quiet. Precise. Kenji's eyes narrowed just slightly. "I'm offering you a choice." Jasmine's lips curved faintly. "That's what it always looks like." A pause. The space between them shifted again. Not tense. Not hostile. But real. "I work too hard to be where I am," she continued. "Even if where I am doesn't look like much to you." Kenji didn't interrupt, didn't correct, didn't defend. He listened. "My son," she added softly, "needs to see that." Another pause. Then, "I needed dignity," she said, "not rescue." The sentence settled, deeper than the offer, deeper than the refusal, because it wasn't about money. It wasn't about pride. It was about something harder to define, something that couldn't be given, only kept. Kenji exhaled slowly. For the first time, he understood the shape of the answer, even if he didn't fully understand the reasoning behind it. "You would rather struggle," he said. Jasmine met his eyes. "I would rather stand," she replied. The words didn't challenge him. They didn't reject him. They just existed. Clear. Unmovable. Kenji looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Once, no? Not agreement. Acknowledgement. "I see," he said. Jasmine gave a small nod in return. "Thank you," she added. "For what?" "For offering." Kenji's expression shifted slightly, because that part he hadn't expected. Gratitude without acceptance. Respect without agreement. It didn't fit. But it was real. Jasmine picked up her tray. "If there's nothing else..." Kenji stepped back slightly. "No," he said. She nodded. "Have a good day." Then she turned and walked away. Not quickly, not dramatically. Just done. Kenji stood there for a moment longer than he needed to. The diner moved around him again, unchanged. And yet, everything felt different. Claire approached from the door. "Sir?" she said quietly. Kenji didn't respond right away. He was still looking at the space where Jasmine had been. "She refused?" Claire asked. Kenji nodded. "Yes." Claire blinked. "That's unusual." Kenji's gaze shifted slightly. "No," he said. "It's not." Claire studied him. Something in his tone had changed. Subtle, but real. "What would you like to do?" she asked. Kenji didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, set cash on the counter. More than the bill. More than necessary. But not excessive. Then he turned toward the door. "Let's go," he said. Claire followed. But as they stepped outside, Kenji paused. Just for a second. The air was cold again. The rain had stopped completely. And the city. The city looked the same as it always did. But he didn't. Because something in him had shifted. Not from being challenged. Not from being embarrassed. From being seen. And from seeing. He got into the car without another word. But as the door closed, a thought stayed with him. Persistent. Unresolved. She didn't want his money. She didn't need his approval. She didn't need anything from him. And somehow, that made her impossible to ignore. The car door closed with a quiet, solid sound. Kenji Sato didn't speak as the vehicle pulled away from the curb. The city moved past the tinted glass in muted colors. Gray sidewalks, red brake lights, reflections stretching across wet pavement. Chicago carried on, unaware that something small but significant had shifted inside the man sitting in the back seat. Claire sat across from him, tablet resting on her lap, waiting. She had worked with him long enough to recognize the difference between silence that meant nothing and silence that meant everything. This was the second kind. "You want me to transfer the funds?" she asked carefully. "We can route it through a foundation. It won't trace back to you." Kenji shook his head. "No." Claire frowned slightly. "Then, what would you like to do?" Kenji looked out the window, not at the city, at something beyond it. "She didn't refuse help," he said. Claire tilted her head. "She refused dependency." Claire didn't respond right away. Because that distinction, it mattered. "And she's right," Kenji added quietly. Claire studied him. This wasn't the man she had watched negotiate billion-dollar deals without hesitation. This wasn't the man who saw problems as systems to be solved. This was something else. "What's your plan?" she asked. Kenji's gaze sharpened slightly, not outwardly, internally. "We give her what she asked for," he said. Claire blinked. She didn't ask for anything. Kenji looked at her. "Yes, she did." A pause. "She asked to stand." Claire leaned back slightly, processing. "And how do we do that?" she asked. Kenji didn't answer immediately. Because this required something different. Not power. Not force. Precision. "Find out where she applied," he said. Claire's fingers moved across her tablet. "Applied for what?" Kenji's expression didn't change. "For something better." That evening, Jasmine sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The overhead light flickered once before settling. Across the room, Noah was asleep again, curled up under the same worn blanket, his breathing steady but shallow. The hospital visit had left a quiet weight in the air. Not panic, not chaos, Something slower, heavier, the kind of reality that didn't crash in. It settled, stayed. Jasmine stared at the envelope in front of her. Mercy General Hospital. Final estimate. She hadn't opened it yet. Didn't need to. She already knew what it would say. Her phone buzzed. She didn't reach for it right away. Then it buzzed again. She exhaled slowly and picked it up. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? Miss Carter? The voice was professional, neutral. This is Amanda Reeves from Northbridge Corporate Services. You submitted an application with us 2 weeks ago. Jasmine straightened slightly. Yes, she said. I'm calling to let you know that we'd like to invite you in for an interview. Jasmine blinked. Her mind didn't catch up right away. What? We reviewed your application, Amanda continued, and we believe your skill set may be a strong fit for a client-facing operations role. Jasmine looked down at the table, at the unopened hospital bill, at the coffee she hadn't touched. I don't have a degree, she said. That's not a requirement for this position. I don't have corporate experience. We value practical experience. Jasmine let out a quiet breath. This didn't make sense. Not completely. When is the interview? She asked. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, if that works for you. Tomorrow. So soon it felt almost intentional. Jasmine's fingers tightened slightly around the phone. Yes, she said. That works. Excellent. We'll send you the details. The call ended. Jasmine sat there, still holding the phone. The room felt different. Not lighter, but shifted. She looked toward Noah, then back at the table, at the envelope, at everything waiting for her. And for the first time since the hospital call, there was something else in the room. Not hope. Not yet possibility. The next morning came faster than she was ready for. Jasmine stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of the only blazer she owned. It wasn't new. It wasn't perfect. But it was clean, pressed, ready. She pulled her hair back, her movements precise, controlled. In the reflection, she didn't look like someone waiting tables. She looked like someone becoming something else. Noah watched from the couch. You look fancy, he said. Jasmine smiled faintly. Don't get used to it. He grinned. You're gonna get the job. Jasmine walked over, crouching beside him. Maybe, she said. Definitely, he replied. She brushed a hand through his hair. I'll be back before you know it. He nodded. Mrs. Alvarez said she's bringing soup again. Jasmine laughed softly. Then you're in good hands. She stood, grabbed her bag, and paused at the door. Just for a second. Then she stepped out. The building downtown was glass and steel. Clean lines, sharp edges. The kind of place that reflected the sky instead of blending into it. Jasmine stood outside for a moment, looking up. People moved past her in tailored suits, coffee cups in hand, voices low and purposeful. She took a breath, then walked in. The lobby was quiet, polished floors, soft lighting, a receptionist behind a desk who barely looked up. Name? The woman asked. Jasmine Carter. The receptionist typed something, then nodded. Elevator to the 14th floor. Jasmine stepped inside. The doors closed. The ride up felt longer than it was. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirrored walls. Not nervous. Not exactly. Focused. The doors opened. A hallway stretched ahead. Clean, ordered, controlled. A woman approached her, smiling politely. Jasmine? Yes. I'm Amanda. We spoke on the phone. They shook hands. Right this way. Jasmine followed, each step steady, each breath measured. The room they entered was simple: a table, 2 chairs, a window overlooking the city. Amanda gestured for her to sit. "Tell me about your experience," she said. Jasmine began, not with titles, not with credentials, with what she knew, how she read people, how she solved problems before they appeared, how she listened, not just to words, but to what people meant. Amanda listened, really listened, which was new, different. Halfway through, the door opened, quietly. Amanda didn't turn, but Jasmine did. And there he was, Kenji Sato, standing in the doorway. Not in a suit this time, not in control of a table, just present, watching. Jasmine's breath caught, just for a second, then steadied. Amanda finally turned. "Mr. Sato," she said. Jasmine's eyes flicked back to her. Understanding settled in, not fully, but enough. Kenji stepped inside. "I apologize for the interruption," he said. But his eyes never left Jasmine. Not this time. Not ever again. The room didn't change. Not physically. The same table. The same window. The same quiet hum of a building designed to keep everything controlled and predictable. But the moment shifted. Jasmine sat still in her chair, her back straight, her hands resting lightly on her lap. She didn't stand. She didn't speak. She didn't look away. Kenji Sato stepped fully into the room and closed the door behind him. Soft, deliberate. Amanda straightened slightly. "I wasn't aware you'd be joining us," she said. Kenji gave a small nod. "I wanted to observe." His voice was calm, measured, but there was something else in it now. Something that hadn't been there in the diner. Not authority, not distance. Clarity. Amanda glanced at Jasmine, then back at Kenji. "Of course, so," she said, though it was clear this wasn't standard procedure. Kenji moved to the far side of the room, not taking a seat, just standing near the window. The city stretched behind him, glass towers, moving traffic, the quiet energy of people building something larger than themselves. But his attention wasn't on the city. It was on her. "Please continue," Amanda said, turning back to Jasmine. Jasmine nodded once. Then she did. She continued exactly where she had left off. No hesitation, no adjustment, no performance. She spoke about her experience in the diner, not as a job, but as a system. How she read people. How she anticipated needs before they were spoken. How she managed tension without escalating it. How she listened. Not just to words, to silence. Amanda's pen moved across her notepad. Steady, focused. Kenji didn't interrupt, didn't correct, didn't guide. He just watched and listened. For the first time, without testing. When Jasmine finished, the room held a quiet stillness. Not awkward, not empty. Full. Amanda set her pen down. "That was..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "One of the most practical explanations of client dynamics I've heard." Jasmine inclined her head slightly. "Thank you." Amanda glanced toward Kenji. He hadn't moved, but something in his expression had settled. Not uncertainty, recognition. "Mr. Sato?" Amanda prompted gently. Kenji stepped forward, slow, measured, He stopped at the edge of the table, looking directly at Jasmine. Not past her, not around her, at her. "You understand people," he said. It wasn't a question. Jasmine met his gaze. "I try to." Kenji nodded once. "That's more than most." A pause. Amanda looked between them, sensing something deeper than a standard interview, something she wasn't meant to control. Kenji placed his hands lightly on the back of the empty chair across from Jasmine. "I owe you an apology," he said. The words landed clean, without hesitation, without defense. Jasmine didn't react immediately, because she hadn't expected that. Not here. Not like this. "For what?" she asked. Kenji held her gaze. "For assuming I understood you," he said. A beat. "And for deciding who you were before you ever spoke." The room stayed quiet. Amanda didn't write anything down, didn't move. Because this wasn't part of the process. This was something else. Jasmine studied him, carefully. Not to judge, to understand. "You didn't know me," she said. "No," Kenji replied. "But I acted like I did." Jasmine let that sit, then nodded slightly. "Yes." There was no anger in her voice, no accusation, just acknowledgement. Kenji exhaled slowly. "I've built my life on reading situations quickly," he said, "making decisions before hesitation becomes risk." Jasmine listened. "But some things," he added, "aren't meant to be read that way." A pause. "People," he finished. Jasmine's eyes softened just slightly. Not forgiving, not dismissing, understanding. "That's true," she said. Kenji straightened. The distance between them didn't feel like distance anymore. It felt intentional. "I didn't come here to offer you a position," he said. Amanda blinked. That was new. Kenji continued. "I came here to see if what I saw yesterday was real." Jasmine didn't move. "And?" she asked. Kenji's expression didn't change. "It was." The word settled. Simple. Certain. Jasmine looked down briefly, then back up. "What happens now?" she asked. Kenji glanced at Amanda, then back at Jasmine. "Now," he said, "you decide." Amanda leaned forward slightly. "The role is yours if you want it," she said. "We've already reviewed everything we need." Jasmine's breath caught, just slightly, then steadied. This wasn't handed to her, not the way she had refused before. This was something else. An opening, not a rescue, a door. She looked at Kenji. "You arranged this," she said. It wasn't a question. Kenji didn't deny it. "I made sure you were seen," he replied. Jasmine held his gaze. "That's all?" Kenji nodded. "That's all." A long pause. The city outside moved. Cars passed. People walked. Lives continued. Inside the room, everything waited. Jasmine exhaled slowly. Then, "I'll take the interview," she said. Amanda smiled. "You already did." Jasmine let out a quiet breath. Something in her shoulders eased. Not completely, but enough. Kenji stepped back, not out of the moment, out of her space where he belonged. "You didn't need me," he said. Jasmine looked at him. "No," she replied. "But you didn't get in the way." A faint smile touched his expression. The first real one. Small, unpracticed, honest. "That's progress," he said. Jasmine almost smiled. The meeting ended quietly. No announcements, no handshakes meant for display. Just decisions made. Clear, final. Jasmine stepped out into the hallway. The building felt different now. Not intimidating, not distant. Just possible. Behind her, the door opened again. Kenji stepped out. "Miss Carter." She turned. "Yes?" He hesitated. Not from uncertainty, from choice. "I was wrong about one more thing," he said. Jasmine raised an eyebrow slightly. "What's that?" Kenji met her eyes. "You don't belong somewhere smaller." A pause. "You belong wherever you decide to stand." The words didn't sound like praise. They sounded like truth. Jasmine held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you. Not for the job, not for the opportunity, for seeing." Kenji inclined his head slightly, then turned, walking down the hallway without looking back. Jasmine watched him go, not as a man above her, not as a man below her. Just a man who had changed, and that mattered more than anything he could have offered. The city felt different when she stepped outside, not because anything had changed. The same traffic lights blinked, the same taxis rolled past, the same wind moved between buildings, carrying the scent of rain and steel, and something faintly warm from a street vendor down the block. But Jasmine Carter stood on the sidewalk just a second longer than she needed to. Not lost, not overwhelmed, present. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something chasing her. It felt like something waiting. Her first day came quietly. No announcement, no celebration. Just a desk near a wide window, a name printed cleanly on a temporary badge, and a system that expected her to learn fast. She did, because she always had, because that was never the part she struggled with. It wasn't the work. It was being seen doing it. The office moved differently than the diner. Less noise, more distance. People spoke in softer tones, but their words carried more weight. Jasmine noticed everything. The way one manager avoided direct questions. The way a client hesitated before agreeing to a proposal. The way silence stretched when something wasn't being said. She didn't interrupt. She didn't push. She listened. And when she spoke, it mattered. By the third day, someone asked her to sit in on a meeting she wasn't scheduled for. By the end of the first week, she was solving problems no one had written down. And by the second week, people stopped asking who she was. They started asking what she thought. That evening, she walked Noah to the small park 2 blocks from their apartment. The sky was fading into soft orange and gray, the kind of quiet Chicago evening that felt like the city was catching its breath. Noah sat on the swing, his small hands gripping the chains as he pushed himself forward. Not high, just enough. Jasmine stood nearby, watching. "You like your new job?" he asked. She smiled. "I do." "You smile more," he said. Jasmine laughed softly. "Do I?" He nodded. "Yeah, not like fake smile, real one." She looked out across the park, at the worn benches, at the couple walking their dog, at the light catching on the edges of buildings. "Feels different," she said. Noah slowed the swing, dragging his feet against the ground. "Did the man help you?" he asked. Jasmine tilted her head slightly. "Which man?" "The one from the restaurant." She considered that, then shook her head. "No." Noah frowned slightly. "But you got the job." Jasmine walked over, gently steadying the swing. "I got the chance," she said. "That's different." Noah looked up at her, confused. Why did you help him if he was mean? He asked. The question landed soft, but real. Jasmine crouched down in front of him, because that was the question. Not about jobs, not about money, about choice. She brushed a hand lightly across his cheek. Because people don't always know who they are yet, she said. Noah blinked, thinking. Like when I thought broccoli was bad? Jasmine smiled. Exactly like that. He grinned, then leaned forward and hugged her. Tight, simple, honest. Jasmine held him for a second longer than usual, then stood. The world didn't feel fixed. It didn't feel perfect. But it felt right. Across the city, in a high-rise office with glass walls and quiet floors, Kenji Sato stood alone near a window. The skyline stretched out in front of him. Familiar, unchanged. But he didn't see it the same way. Claire stepped into the room quietly. The revised deal terms are finalized, she said. Everything's aligned. Kenji nodded. Good. Claire hesitated. Then, you've been different, she said. Kenji didn't turn. How? Claire considered that. You pause more, she said. A faint smile touched his expression. That's new. Yes. Claire stepped closer. Was it her? Kenji didn't answer right away. Then, yes. Claire nodded once, not surprised. Are you going to see her again? She asked. Kenji looked out across the city, then shook his head. No. Claire raised an eyebrow slightly. No? Kenji turned slightly, his reflection catching in the glass. She doesn't need me to, he said. A pause. And I don't need to prove anything to her. Claire studied him, then nodded. That makes sense. Kenji looked back out. The city moved, unaware, unchanged. But for him, everything had shifted. Not because he had gained something, because he had seen something. And once you saw it, you couldn't go back. Weeks later, Jasmine walked past the diner. Not inside, just past. The same warm light glowed through the windows. The same bell chimed as someone entered. The same life continued. She paused, just for a moment, then kept walking. Not because she was leaving it behind, because she was carrying it with her. Every late night, every quiet correction, every moment she had been invisible and chosen not to disappear. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. A message. Unknown number. She opened it. 3 lines. In Japanese. Formal. Precise. She read it once. Then again. A small smile touched her lips. She typed back. Just 2 words. In the same language. Thank you. She put her phone away and kept walking. The city stretched ahead, open, unwritten, and somewhere behind her, a man who once couldn't see her, finally understood. If the people who underestimated you knew everything you were quietly becoming, would they have treated you differently? Or does that say more about them than it ever did about you? If this story meant something to you, keep it simple. Comment 1 if you believe kindness is strength. Comment 0 if you think respect should never depend on status. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, real, powerful, and unforgettable, go ahead and subscribe, because the next story might hit even closer to home.